Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Mystic and the Dreamer. I'm Priscilla Di Macedo, and I'm here with Peter H. Falkdell. And today's show, we're going to talk about the energy shift leading up. Actually, it's already started, about the conjunction of Saturn and Pluto. So this is actually, the peak is happening in 2020. And a lot of astrologers are already talking about the major energy shifts that are happening worldwide as this conjunction is happening. So since Peter is the astrologer, we're also going to touch basis on what exactly is going on. And I'm going to put this more in a different spin. I'm going to also use the tarot cards to explain a little bit more of the energies that are coming up in 2020, which is going to be very interesting for us in this collective field right now.
Yeah, I think it's very important to mention one thing. There are a lot of scaremongers out there. For those of you who have followed either astrology or clairvoyance or have watched countless videos on YouTube that pretty much tell us all that the world is gonna go to pieces, we're all gonna die, the poles are gonna shift, the banking systems are gonna collapse. This is scaremongering. Don't worry about that. However, there is no doubt that we are entering a new period on this planet. There's no doubt that a lot of established institutions, whether it's governments, the before mentioned banks, whether it's the major religions, all those things, this shift has started a few years ago, and it's evident to anyone who watches the news. There is a shift. That is a fact. Our world is changing and will change in a way and quicker that probably ever has happened in the history of this planet. So we are talking about serious energies, and we're also talking about that no matter when you were born, no matter how old or how young you are, this is not a good time for control freaks. It's not a good time for those of you who have decided how your life is going to look like, who think you know exactly what's going to happen, because no one does, and that includes clairvoyants and astrologers. No one knows exactly what it means. But around January 2020, this period we've been in for a while is peaking. And that is an astrological conjunction between the planets Pluto and Saturn. Those are two planets, meaning two energies that don't go particularly well together. They are pretty much about breaking up the world order, and for us, it's about breaking up the way we see the world. So for those people who are open-minded, the next few years will probably be very exciting also in the positive sense of the word. Those who are totally convinced that their worldview is correct, those people who are totally convinced about everything in their life is the way it should be, and please, can this go on for another 10 years? You are going to have problems. So, what is the headline for all of this? What is it you need to do to enjoy or at least experience this upcoming period that, as I said, have started several years ago slowly? That is, it's actually very easy. Go with the flow. Go with the flow. Don't set anything in stone in your life. This is the way to live your life, no matter when you were born, for the next few years.
Yeah, it's interesting because in my perception of energy, because I read a lot of energy. Obviously, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out how much the world is just shifting as you look in the news
Exactly.
and the media. And but the patterns are there, and it's pretty obvious to us that read energy or tarot or astrologers, that it's pretty much actually giving us all these patterns that are very evident. For example, when I do this type of energy forecast, of the collective, it's easier for me to look at the cards just to give the symbolism out to you guys. So the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, if I were to get into tarot, it would be the Tower card and the Death card together. So the Tower card and the Death card together, I mean, that is in itself is a very, a huge energy of transformation and rebirth. And the Tower card, for you guys that don't really know what that means in tarot, the Tower card comes in a sense of shock, a sense of don't see it coming. Things are crumbling before you. Things are having to start all over again, and it's out of your control. It's out of your hands. So anytime I see the Tower card in a person's reading, and it's not meant to scare. This has nothing to do with scaring anybody or fear, but it is something of a sudden collapse or sudden fall of something that's no longer working for you. And the Tower card, I would say this to be Saturn in this particular conjunction, okay? I'm not saying this is Saturn at all when it comes to astrology. I'm just saying this particular conjunction of 2020, Saturn is about the Tower. So what that means going forward is that all these institutions, all these things that are, banks, religion, churches, anything that you can think of that are out, which is a lot, mind you, that are not in integrity. That's exactly what Saturn is trying to convey here for us with this Tower card. It's going to give away. Things are going to collapse because they're no longer sustainable. They're no longer... That foundation has to be start all over. It's going to be leveled down, and so that of course is shocking in its own. But it's meant for a higher order to come in. It's meant for your highest good to show up. It's meant for the next best thing that's coming for you. But of course, we all know, everybody that had a huge transformation, anything from dealing with loss to dealing with any kind of deep transformation in your own personal lives, you understand that standing in a rubble or standing in something that you can no longer recognize, you have no idea how this happened. You can take all that as a shock, but it also is that grief as well, right? Because you're like, how am I going to move forward from something that I no longer recognize? It's unrecognizable. But that's exactly what that Tower card does. It's a divine order. It's God's hand, that lightning bolt striking that tower. That's just a symbolism. And everybody falling out, everybody, getting out, crumbling down. It's because it's a higher order saying enough is enough. It's a higher order saying now we have to restart all over again from scratch. And I'm not saying it's the whole world that's going to start from scratch, but it's definitely this institutions that have to do with, that takes so many people for granted, unfortunately, and the money system as well. I think this is just a huge shift in consciousness.
Yeah.
So all this is crumbling, but it looks scary. It definitely feels uncomfortable. That's for damn sure. It's not comfortable. It's not meant to be comfortable. It's meant to push us out of our own comfort zone. That's exactly what this is indicating. This is exactly what this conjunction wants us to do, is to get out of our comfort zones, because there's a better way of doing things. There are better ways to perceive the world. There are better ways to come together to solve the problems of the world. We can't keep going back. There's no going back. Then there's Pluto, which is the Death card. You can't go back. Once there's death is finalized.
But death in terms of, it should be called transformation, so people don't get that wrong. But it's not physical death.
No, it's not physical death, but you get what I'm saying when I say death is final, right? You can't go back to something that has decayed. You can't go back and rebuild something that is decayed. There's no life matter. It's completely transformed into something else. And that is, if you also want the symbolism, it is a little bit of the phoenix rising out from the ashes, but we're not there yet. We're not the phoenix yet. This is all about transformation and building something out of the ruins. So whatever this ruin's going to look like, to me personally, I think is just us focus more on how these institutions that gather people, how can we better serve the humanity? How can we better serve our communities with education, schools, churches, banks, money, order systems, all of this, because it serves the greater good of humanity, but we can't keep going back to the old ways that we have been doing it, to the detriment of Mother Earth, to the detriment of our own kids, the next generations coming up. We can't keep doing this over and over again. It's not, it's evidence to all of us that are in this realm that we have to do things a different way. And this is one of those things that are going to push us out of our comfort zone. And there's no, we have to think outside the box here.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. In terms of astrology, I want to say something that surprises me when I read about the Pluto and Saturn conjunction coming up, because there's no doubt we all are gonna be affected, and already we are affected by this period. But since we all have individual horoscopes, and that's my thing, trying to teach people that the general astrology is so general that it often doesn't work and is actually almost detrimental to an understanding of what astrology is. But if you look at the individual horoscopes, and that means people who are born in the second half of Capricorn, in the second half of Aries, in the second half of Libra, and the second half of Cancer. I don't think, my God, I didn't get that in the right order, but it doesn't really matter. The second half of Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. Those are the ones who will be affected by this because their sun is fairly close, or sometimes extremely close to the conjunction between Saturn and Pluto. So let's look at this from a psychological point of view. Saturn and Pluto, as I said before, is pretty much teaching us that to look at our own inner church, our own inner bank, our own inner government. Where are we dogmatic? Where is it we have decided that this is the way the world looks and we're not gonna change? Those people who don't want to change, especially those people who are born in the second half of, again, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, those people will need to change.
When you say second half, can you actually give the dates? Because sometimes that's helpful,
Yes.
for me.
I was going to do that, absolutely. So we're talking in general about Aries, people who are born from around April 7th to April 17th. So it's not the last days of the sign that will be affected, but those are the ones who already are affected quite a bit by this. So that means that if you feel there's a chaotic situation in your life and everything is kind of falling apart, it actually has to do with a global aspect that asks you to change. The same is true for anyone born in in Cancer from around July 8th till around July 19th. The early ones in this period, meaning July 8th, 9th, and 10th, and 11th, they will totally know what I'm talking about already, because that is in effect now. For the latter ones, from around 12th of July, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th of July, this is coming as a huge inner change. It doesn't necessarily mean a lot will happen on the outside, but we are talking basically about people who are in crisis and will have to redefine their own lives. Same is true for people born in Libra, again from around October 7th to around October 19th. Please remember this, you pretty much have to have the whole horoscope of anyone to be more specific than I am. I am not being very specific, except that the dates, if you're born around October 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, and 11th, you probably will know what I'm talking about already. It might be a difficult time for you right now. For the others, it's coming. Not necessarily that it will be difficult, but as I said, if you hold on to things, it will be difficult. If you can go with the flow, it actually might be an exciting time with challenges, but you have to think of the word challenges to make this positive. And then again, in Capricorn, we're talking about people born from around January 5th and 6th, 7th and 8th. Those will know what I'm talking about already. And the ones coming afterwards up till around 15th or 16th of January, they will have this coming into their life, this sense of everything is changing, what is happening, everything I trusted and thought was right for me might not be right for me anymore. So, it also goes without saying, I just can't, obviously looking at you out there, by the way, I can't look at you out there, but if you have major planets like the moon and ascendants in a degree from around 15th to around 25 in either Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, this will also have an effect. But I have no way of knowing whether you have the moon or the ascendant there, because then you will also feel this as an effect, as something strong. So I think you could probably argue that at least, and I'm just throwing this out here, I haven't counted, but this shift we're talking about will have a major influence, probably for around a personal major influence for probably around 1/6 of the population on planet Earth.
Wow. Yeah. The astrologers are, kind of making this a big deal, and I understand why. To me, it feels already, things have already been.
But forget about the scaremongering about that earthquake upon earthquake, and everybody is gonna go bankrupt, and all relationships are gonna fall apart. Please forget that, because there are a lot of scaremongers out there. You can just, if you want to be scared to death, please go to YouTube and watch some of the clairvoyants and some of the people who claim they come from other planets. I mean, they can scare you to death.
Yeah, no, this is not. This is not what we're about. We're here just to give you more information, in-depth information as well, so you can actually look at your chart. And there are many charts you can do for free online.
Yes, you can. As always, on like astro.com, you can put in your data.
Yeah.
And a lot of other places. Again, you don't necessarily need a horoscope for any of this we're talking about. Just know, and I like to keep things simple, so please, I apologize if I repeat myself a lot. If you go into this period, no matter who you are, whether you're 88 or 8 years old, if you go into this period with a curiosity that's about learning and about not pigeonholing yourself as someone who cannot do this or have to do this to be happy, this will and can be a very exciting period. But if you think everything in your life works and you're not going to change, and the world is the one that has a problem and you don't, it will be a challenging period.
Yeah. I also see that, like I said before, that it is us, it's us as a collective really thinking about how to live in a different way that is more in harmony with everything
with
around.
Inner nature and outer nature.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's obvious that the outer parts of this conjunction and this is just me speaking energetically as I'm looking out, that is the most obvious. Unless you're in big denial, that's exactly where we're going to be faced with. We're going to be faced with how else can we solve these problems that have been here for so long, because with the earth changing and climate change and the political sphere getting hotter by the minute, we're going to, there is a lot of clashes of ideology, and there's going to continue being a lot of clashes of ideology. So, it's important for us to have that open mind, because as Albert Einstein has said, you can't solve a problem with the same thought patterns of what created in the first place. We have to really, I'm just paraphrasing, that's not what his quote was, but we have to really think outside the box. But I think we as a collective humankind understand that we can't keep going on the same ways we have been the last 2,000 years. I mean, technology is great, people. It's there to help us out as well. And we have the innovation, and we have those visionaries out there. And if you're one of those, please, we need you to really step up to this, because that's exactly the kind of people we need right now. We need the visionaries and we need the innovators to come in, because with all this technology, and that's exactly what I already foresee, is that is it. We are finally coming out of this, outdated, it's going to take a while, guys, but I mean, it's outdated belief systems and outdated, of just always going with, out of harmony with nature and Mother Earth. I mean, that's the thing here. It's like, we have resources, Mother Earth has supported us for a very long time and will continue to do so, but we can't keep going the way we're doing. We're the ones that are almost like the cancer to this earth. You understand? We're the ones that are causing all these problems as humans. And I think that's where this consciousness shift is really kicking up gear, because it's like, when you don't wake up, the outside world will wake you up. And that's what I'm saying about this Tower card. It's like, this Tower card will wake your ass up. It's a freaking wake-up call. And doesn't matter who you are. That's just the times we're living right now. We're in this major wake-up call of doing things a little different. And we can't keep thinking about the same things and trying to solve the problems of the world the way we've been. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work. And I think that's exactly why these wake-up calls are important right now in our consciousness as we evolve and try to be more a community than we are separate, And don't get me wrong, I see a lot of good news out there, people helping out, but it seems like we're always in this survival mode, and it's time for us to really start amplifying out of the survival mode,
I think that the extreme individualism, and I've actually personally also years ago was an extreme individualist in the sense that it was all about me. I think that is the attitude that's disappearing. And when we talk about people waking up, and a lot of spiritual airheads and clairvoyants and astrologers talk about that we need to wake up, it actually has to do with what Scylla just said. It has to do with our sense of community has to become stronger. We cannot do this alone. We have to think, and it's very important for everybody to understand, this has nothing to do with political parties or anything like that, because you have people who are stuck in the past in no matter what party you vote for. They can be equally bad about being stuck in the past. But we as individuals need to wake up to a new reality where we need each other in a way we probably have never needed each other. So I see that inner process that's coming up. It has to do with us becoming conscious of the religious part of us, the soul, that we are spiritual beings, that we all are here in a body to have an earthly experience. So I'm not saying that atheism or the rational view of life is going to disappear. Actually, I think that will fight this more spiritual aspect like crazy, and you can tell from the world that that's exactly what's happening. But I do think it's very important that we see the so-called shocks we can get during the next year, and we totally can. As Scylla said, she also mentioned the Tower card in Tarot, which stands for that, and the Saturn Pluto also is kind of an explosive combination in astrology. We simply need to wake up, or as Scylla said, if not, life will wake us up. But the positive thing about this is a lot of people are shifting. There's a lot of hope out there. There's a lot of light that people wake up and understand that life is not just about making money. And again, this is actually not a political point of view. Life is not just about work. Life is not just about having a wonderful wife, husband, or 18 lovers. Life is about something much deeper. Our spiritual connection to ourselves, to everybody around us, to the world as such.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we have this theory, right, that, I mean, it's not even a theory. We were taught and schooled that, Darwin's theory of like survival. And what has kind of been apparent to us and is that we can't keep competing with each other. It's not going to serve anybody. We're the ones that are going to be the biggest losers out of this.
But that comes out of individualism when you're about competing and being better than anyone else. And that has to die, I agree. And we have to do all of us have to do our small share, not to compete, but look at nature in a different way.
Well, but we are nature. We are nature. We're not separate of nature. And it's one of these things that, like, as human beings, we have already so much potential. I mean, we have a body that is self-regulating all the time. Our cells are doing all the work for us here without our thought or our process. It's like, how do we get so deviated from this? How do we get so deviated out of nature? That's exactly what I think this whole conjunction is going to really teach us, is to realign ourselves back to the harmony of nature again, because we need to. Yeah. We need to get back to understanding that there are all these natural laws that we can definitely work with. That's what I'm saying with the technology right now, and the solar and the wind and the water. All of this, all these visionaries and all these innovators are the ones that are actually going to solve these issues, because as a community, as human beings, this is the next generation's, this is like the dream, right? But it's not really the dream. It can be reality, but we can't not go back. That's exactly what the Saturn conjunction is going to teach us. We can't go back.
Yeah.
How hard it is we fight. It's just one of those things. We need to be more conscious of how do we want to live our daily lives. Do we really want to live our lives in this rat cage of competition, of money and work, hard work all the time? And I know not all of us live that way, but that's like what, 80% of the population here that are living in survival mode and always going, and not giving it a second thought. And, there shouldn't be a wake-up call for us to really reorganize our whole life, but that's what it takes. That's how we learn sometimes. And
unfortunately, yes.
Yes. And that's what I'm saying with Pluto being the death card here. It's not to scare anybody, but it is a major transformation of your life. Transformation of your life as how you would live going forward, because there is actually, you can't go back to that past. You can't go back to how things were. So it's like a whole different way of being, a whole different way of living. And it's just the peak. 2020 is going to be a peak of all this. It's going to be the peak of like all this crazy energy and institutions trying to hold on to what they know, they've
Politics,
done forever,
holding on
everything. So the less you can hold on to things that are either ideology or like you were saying, that will get you stuck in this box, I think you're better off moving forward and having an open mind and going with the flow, as you said.
Right. And I would like to finish by saying that if you want to read about this, Eckhart Tolle wrote a book 10, 15 years ago called A New Earth. It's basically about all this. And it's also about not just focusing on the outer world and how awful the world has become, because in a certain sense, the world will become better because it's awful right now. So A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle is also more so about your inner process in all this, how every single of us need to make that shift, no matter where we stand politically, no matter what our worldview is, no matter which religion we belong to, no matter whether we are deeply rational or atheists, we need to change.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation. Absolutely. I'll even reread that. That's exactly where we're at.
It's probably one of the best spiritual books ever written, if not the best one.
And that's exactly what it's trying to get to come out of this transformation is a new earth. So thank you, Peter, for throwing that recommendation. A good call. So we're about to wrap this up, but thank you guys for listening, and I'm excited for what's in the future. I really am, and I don't want to be stuck in fear like you said. It's just really being more conscious of how we want to live our daily life. And I think that's very important for us, no matter where we're at, where we live,
To be conscious of who you are, be very conscious of what you need to work with instead of becoming a professional victim who looks at the world and the news and is terrified. Be very aware of your own shadow sides. And I think that's always an incredibly important part of personal development, because we all have the world inside of us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for listening to us, and we appreciate all of you who do. Till next time.
Till next time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mange
Bye.
tak.